Hey, welcome everybody to With Thunderous Applause podcast, where two friends get together to talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach. What's up?
Nothing much. I finished off all the testing and everything on the chicken and pig setups and got it all to fit inside of the two boxes that the solenoids came in with some clever packing. And so now I just got to put those inside of a bigger box, mail it to
USPS flat rate that shit, bro.
you.
It'd be like $7 or something. I think I already sent you the money.
You do, yeah.
We probably maybe could not talk about that on our podcast.
Probably not.
Like I already Venmo'd you the money.
Chicken. Yeah. But yeah, so that was big for me. As soon as I mail it, I can wipe it off my list of things to continue to care about until the problem arises. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%, bro. So I didn't get any articles for it or anything, but we wanted to lead today. We have a decent show today. Shooting the Poodoo, episode number
27.
27.
27.
Excellent. And today we're going to do our normal Shooting the Poodoo, where we just kind of smash together a bunch of random shit and talk about it. So we wanted to lead off with COVID surging, and that's kind of also like a quick update too, is that we finished our travels, as I said, Monday. Did I say I had COVID Monday?
I think you might have.
No, I think I mentioned gastrointestinal distress, that I wasn't
Oh,
sure
yeah,
it was
yeah.
from drinking the water or eating bad food or just like excessive amounts of drinking.
Put it all together, and what do you got?
Put it all together, and what do you got? At any rate, no, the next day I kind of felt shitty. I took a COVID test and was negative, so then I went and ran my errands, which was dropping my suit off and at the rental place, and then going to my chiropractor because I had a chiropractor appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And I did say, I'm not really feeling great. I'll test for COVID. And the test was negative. And then like later that afternoon, I started like really feeling like shit. And I tested again and I was fucking positive. So like, I'm like, fuck, I went to the fucking chiropractor's office. Shit. I was like, I swear to God, I tested.
The damn test, it was confusing. Why have we learned absolutely nothing from...
Oh, no, I test all the time.
No, I meant like the test, results are confusing.
Like, no, I wasn't confused.
No, okay.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, though. Yeah, they are not. Yeah.
Like, it seems like they've learned absolutely nothing from pregnancy tests.
Pregnancy tests are plus or minus, right?
Yeah. They've got it down. They've got it down. And here we're just like, I don't know. There's a line if it's pink enough. Yeah.
Plus or minus. Minus not no, great. Plus yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's the control line. But then maybe the control line could be the X or the minus. And then if you get the other one, it turns into a plus.
There you go.
But yes, that's the kind of test I have that you're showing on your screen. Did you want to do a quick news item?
Yeah, might as well. I just pulled it up.
Great. Sweet. So, new to us. Go ahead, read it.
NBC News, COVID hospitalizations are rising again. Here's what to know. Wastewater data also points to a rise in COVID cases. Odds of getting seriously ill remain low. And that makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, please. It makes sense because...
that's how these things go. Like the strains that kill people quickest prior to spreading die out, of course. And so they don't spread. And so it's the milder things. And it'll just get to be like the flu, where it kills like I think it's like 300,000 people a year or some shit like that.
Yeah, and you know what, dude? Like, seriously, like, I really hate how we keep medical statistics, and that we have a lot of shit to cover, so we need to not necessarily dwell on this. But like, it's like 95-year-old person falls down, goes to hospital, has flu that contributed to them being dizzy, but they're also fucking 95. And then if they die at the hospital, they died of the flu. Right. And you're like, no, they died because they're fucking 95. And that's what they did with COVID. Is the statistics were way blown out of proportion because like they were just counting anybody who died in the hospital with COVID as a COVID death. Right. It's like, no, that person bled to death from a car accident. They just happened to fucking test positive for COVID.
Post-mortem COVID test.
Yeah, post-mortem tested positive. Yeah. That is not a COVID death. But when the federal government's just like, yeah, sure, we'll throw money at all these private corporations that we have stock in,
I, for
to
one,
do all
don't
of
own
this stuff.
stock.
It was what do you call that? Shock doctrine or disaster capitalism is all that shit was.
Yeah, yeah.
The
We've
gigantic fucking grift.
and we've
Go ahead,
definitely
sorry.
covered that. I was gonna say, and we've definitely covered disaster capitalism
Yeah, we cover
in
it
the
all the time
past. So
because it's part of this process
it's
of societal decay. Is
yeah,
that we can't meet our needs as a society because the elite are fucking siphoning everything off for themselves.
exactly. Yeah, but here you can see it says a 12.1% increase. Hospital admissions that were due to COVID. Spiggity spike down here. Spiggity spike. So
So is that US? Yeah, Health and Human Services.
yeah,
So that's going to be just US data, correct?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow, that many people going to the fucking hospital, huh?
140,000 back in 2022. Yeah,
Oh, in 2022. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Here we're what is this? January. We're over here. Doesn't even show the spike. Terrible graph. Needs to be shrunk.
Yeah, so the spike looks more severe.
Yeah, you gotta scare me, man.
Realistically, too, you would probably like eliminate the noise by just having the fucking either the high points or
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Let's see.
it's like a bar graph. Like,
Yeah, but basically just overall increase. A lot of people have immunity or at least protection. I think you were saying there was a new variety, the seasonal varietal that has come out.
yeah, they gave it some weird number and then a code word. I couldn't. It was the EG1 something something. It was just like
Yeah.
a numeric alphanumerical code.
Why not COVID 23? Come on, guys.
I know that's where they're like, oh, a new strain of COVID-19. You're like, it's 23 and it's called COVID-19 because it was 2019
Yeah, exactly.
when it came around.
Yeah, so COVID 23.
That's when it was birthed by the lab technicians in Wuhan.
That's what you think. That's what you think.
Oh no,
no
it
idea.
definitely was a fucking. I don't think it was a weapons lab. I think they were
Yeah.
doing legit medical research, and if they fucked up, pardon me. At any rate, yeah. I don't know. My symptoms are bad. The first time I had it, like, I just was like, "Ooh, I don't feel very well." Just like a really abruptly. I
Right.
went to bed, woke up the next morning, and it felt like gravity was trying to like crush my fucking bones, which was the weirdest.
Wow.
Since no, dude, like my
Going
hips,
full
all
Dragon
my
Ball
bones,
Z. You're
it
like
literally felt like
10
they were trying
times.
to crush themselves.
Yeah, 10 times
Because that's
gravity.
how bad the aching was and how deep into the body it was. It
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, my tendons are achy, right? Like, no, it's like, no, my fucking bones hurt, dude. And then
Most,
I
most of
slept
them.
like that whole fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
The whole day. Like, I think I was awake for like 4 hours out of a 24-hour period. It was fucking crazy. And woke up the next day, I was still kind of off kilter a bit, but was awake the whole day or whatever. And then the day after that, I was fucking fine. No
Oh
fever,
wow,
nothing. I was over it in like
your
2 days.
experience is super different from mine. The wife and I got it at 2 different times, which is great because we could each take care of each other. But mine was purely sinus. Like, it felt like there was fire in my sinuses. If I
Yeah, you
inhaled
were
too,
saying it hurt to
yeah,
breathe.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't
Yeah,
have
way
that
different.
yet.
Hopefully you never have it because it was. I don't advise.
No, right now I'm stuffy, obviously.
Yeah.
I probably should have taken a pseudoephedrine before we started because I'll sound all fucking nasally and shit.
Yeah,
More
we'll
than I
play a
already
video.
do. What's that?
So we'll play a video. You can go grab some.
No. Yeah, you're good. And at any rate, like mild headache, body aches, but for a very short, like just for the one day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly been congestion, mild headache, occasional body aches and fatigue, just being fucking tired.
Yeah.
But I wish that it was the part of me is almost like if it was more intense, I could just sleep all day. I'd miss one day and then fucking bounce back instead of this bullshit where like I'm not really getting a day because I'm too fatigued to really do much other than like I watched fucking most of Solo. I'll probably finish it when I go to bed tonight.
The last time I had it, because I think I had it twice. The last time I had it, it was way more like sinus clog.
Yeah, dude, it hurts from my fucking orbital bone all the way down to like the base of my skull. Like, sucks.
So UPS, they were going to strike.
Yeah, so we mentioned Monday we were gonna do that. So
Yeah.
what we're talking about today quickly, UPS strike, and then we're gonna talk about digital rights management and Google trying to make it more difficult for us to use like Brave browser to fucking get rid of
Right.
ads and shit.
And apparently
Um,
Lizzo a freak. Uh,
and then is Lizzo a freak? We'll finish up with that, I think. Right? Do you want to do
uh,
digital rights management after UPS since you already brought up UPS?
yeah,
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 well, and then
yeah,
we'll finish with Lizzo for sure.
yeah. Okay.
Because that'll be an interesting discussion.
Yeah,
All right, we are
I don't know
15
anything about it.
minutes in. We've covered one story, which is Steve is sick.
Great.
Let's
And
roll.
rolling on. Anyway, UPS union calls off strike threat after securing pay raises for workers. A tentative agreement between UPS and the Teamsters has averted a potential strike at the company. The deal will secure pay raises for part-time workers, and that was a pretty big deal. Part-time workers basically had almost nothing because that's how companies get around unions. Oftentimes, is they're like, "Oh, part-time workers, temps, etc." They're not real employees. We don't have to give them anything. Uh, so yeah, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. UPS drivers were like, "Man, our shit sucks. Please fix it. Here's our demands." And UPS was roundly against it, and eventually it was settled for for now at least. And they're getting more money, quite a bit actually. And UPS has sent out messages on all the social media saying like, "Oh my God, it's going to be so bad. We're not going to make as much profit." Blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, but you're still making money. Um,
Yeah, and we have a few different items on this UPS thing,
Quite a
right?
few actually. Yeah, yeah,
So I think this is a really important part down here. UPS has put 30 billion in new money on the table. I didn't even look up how much money they make as a company, but
right.
pretty sure that's like for the next 5 years of this contract, that's less than a year's fucking profits.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that 30 billion is not purely paying off or paying employees. It is a lot of it is like, oh well, we'd like air conditioning in the trucks, et cetera, et
Yep,
cetera. So a lot of it is going
100%.
towards technology improvements.
30 billion in new money on the table. So some of it is that, some of it is wage increases, some of it is like increased pension contributions, I think, among other things. Yeah. And so if you scroll a little bit further down,
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking up the stats
no,
over
you're
here.
good. Under the tentative 5-year agreement, existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will earn $2.75 more per hour in 2023 and $7.50 more per hour over the length of the contract. Wages for existing part-time earners will be also raised to no less than 21 per hour effective immediately. They just set a company minimum wage
Yeah.
to $21,
Yeah.
and that is fucking awesome.
It's phenomenal. I love
And
it.
I didn't include any links to this, but I found it very interesting. One of the things is that, we're going to have this clip of these capitalists, right? A dude worth $200 million really just kind of talking down to it and being like, this is fucking ridiculous. Even though they're like, we're entrepreneurs and we understand business, but like, doesn't actually understand the context or the nuance of what he's saying. He just like reads a headline and like gets mad about it because the workers want more fucking wages or want more the value of their own production, right?
Right.
Pardon. Um, but I think setting that corporate minimum wage is really important because the attrition rate, like or whatever they call it, the turnover rate,
Mhm.
it's like 90% or 92% of the people that get hired by UPS don't make it like 6 months.
Oh yeah, it's a grueling job. I mean,
Yeah.
from
And most of the yeah, exactly. It's a fucking hard job, which we'll discuss in on another article. I think. But at any rate, it's just, they're saying, oh, they'll make 170,000. And when you look into that, it's not 170,000. And it's not everybody makes 170,000. They set a
Mhm.
minimum wage of $21 for part-time workers. But one of the reasons there's high turnover is because UPS doesn't have a lot of like full-time
Mm.
benefited whatever you call that, getting benefits and all that shit, full-time workers um at all. And there's not a lot of positions. So like the only way for you to make that big money, where it's I think it's supposed to be potentially up to like $45 an hour or something.
Right.
For their most senior drivers, full-time drivers on the hardest routes, right?
Yeah.
And so there's so very few of those. It means that, like, yes, potentially a few people in the company, depending on the circumstances of their day-to-day work, will make really, really, really fucking good money.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority of the people working there are going to be making 21 to 23.
Right.
Or potentially getting a small raise from 23 to 26.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know about any of the companies you've ever worked for, but I have definitely worked for 2 separate banks now who have been like, okay, well, we kind of recognize that you're only bringing home 17, 18, $20 an hour. But, here's the total value of all the things you're getting due to the 401k investment, the stock ownership, the blah, blah, blah. Your health, all the fringe benefits. They're like, actually, you're making like 68,000. And it's like, funny that other stuff doesn't help pay any bills.
Yeah.
So you can add it on, like, especially healthcare. It's like, cool, I pay a bill so I can pay more bills. Thanks.
Oh yeah, with healthcare.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you get healthcare. You're like, that's funny because I actually owe like thousands of dollars for a fucking medical procedure.
Yeah. Yeah. It turns out that even though I pay like $800 every month for the entire family, I still have to pay every single time I go for every single test. And of course, they're like, oh, yeah, go get this tested. Okay, cool. We need more data. Go get this tested. It's like, why didn't you just do it all at once so I could just pay $15 like once? And they're like, because we make more money this way.
Oh, when you talk about your copay?
Yeah.
Break it up so you pay more copays?
Yeah, it's like, well, we did the most obvious test first, and now we did more tests. I'm like, well, my copay asks that you do it all at once. Like, draw all the blood you need. I have plenty.
Yeah, right. Just draw a whole bunch. Yeah, for sure. At any rate, it is not as lucrative as these motherfuckers are going to say it is.
Right.
And this is a 3-minute clip, I think. And there were a few things I wanted to point out because I want you. So I'll preface it because I'm going to step away and grab a tissue and some pseudoephedrine.
Yep.
And more water. But just keep it in the back of your mind here. Like, think of like the various kinds of subtle insults they levy here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Roll it.
Now, Rob, go and see what it costs to ship a regular item. Just go prices at UPS to ship anything, okay? Prices at UPS to ship anything. Let's just see what it comes up. Okay, zoom in. All right, so, zoom in. Okay, right there. So check this out. 1 pound is $8.44, okay? 2 to 4 business days. 2 pounds, $9.96. Okay, guess what? Now, what if they say, well, we want it to go to $490 an hour? We can make that happen. We just got to make it $88 a pound. So this idea of, day one, hey, consumer, you lost.
Yep.
Okay, because it's coming to you. And Tom has a very interesting point as well. For some of you guys that purchase Amazon, what's going to happen with Amazon, Tom?
What do we think is going to happen to Amazon Prime when the renewal comes to your credit card? I bet it's going to be up $6, $8, $10. It's got to. How can it not?
They have to collect that money from somewhere.
It's coming from somewhere.
Now, the difference is
maybe Bezos will go at a loss next year for the consumer.
But the difference is Bezos has fought tooth and nails to avoid union as much as he can because he knows what's going to happen here. I did a poll the other day, Rob. Can you pull up Twitter and go to my Twitter account and you'll see the part where I polled union. Is union a net positive to society or a net negative to society? I think around 18,000 people voted, and here's what the results were. It should be the next one. Zoom in right there. Yeah, 17,800 voted. Wow. Do you feel unions are a net negative, net positive, or net negative to economy?
So
look at that.
People that watch this
32% said positive. 67.8% said it's a net negative. Okay, so that's the part about union when they come in. Here's the part. So in UPS, if you were to compare UPS strike versus Hollywood strike, which one they have to cave? I think it's UPS.
They
I
have
think
to.
you have to cave.
Yeah.
If 340,000 people go on strike, shipments are not coming in.
Yeah.
By the way, you know who the number one parcel company in America is right now? You know who number one is? No, it's UPS.
Really?
If UPS missed this mark, that $30 billion in valuation goes to a whole different place, which means UPS is sitting there saying, guys, we better freaking do something. Guess what Hollywood is saying? Fine. We got plenty of old movies.
Yeah.
We got plenty of stuff. Don't do it. It's okay.
Yeah.
They're still paying a monthly service. While you're not making any new movies, any shows, are you still paying Netflix? Are you still paying
100%.
Hulu?
We have
are you
to.
Still, you have to.
100%.
So the media companies on strike, they're not getting affected, but UPS had to negotiate.
Wow.
The union had to negotiate versus Hollywood. Bob Iger's like, look, it's going to cost a lot of people their house. Hey, listen, you motherfucker. Listen, you $27 million. You want to lose a house?
Yeah,
There's 3 ways you can lose your house.
Ron Perlman.
Right? Yeah, Ron Perlman. Right. So when you think about that part, you just have to know that strike is going to be very different for these guys than the other guys, but $49 an hour. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
and then if there's guys, we have the whole conversation about whether college is worth it or not. My whole thing is typically degrees pay fees, skills pay the bills. Look, there's a lot of people coming out of debt with a couple $100,000 in college loans. Meanwhile, you're just a dude driving a truck with short shorts, with your booty shorts, doing your thing, open window, making $100,000
you're
a
just
year.
a dude acting like another dude.
That's where I told you to end it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that last part really pissed me off considering they didn't mention air conditioning, but the air conditioning was part. Granted, that's a 7-minute clip of a much longer podcast. So, and I didn't seek out the original podcast. I've actually listened to some of their stuff before. I don't really like it. And you go on it and they're like, we're about talking about the value of capitalism and entrepreneurship. And then he's like, oh, look at this poll. 2/3 of people say unions are bad. It's like, that's 2/3 of the people that like your shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, good. I can delete that off of my notes. Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. Did I take that one from you?
No. Well, I always just want to make sure things get covered, but yeah.
Yeah. Go
basically,
ahead.
I mean, honestly, it's like, oh yeah, 2/3 of the people that it's kind of damning, actually. It's like 2/3 of the people that follow me and bother to reply agree with me.
We're interested in capitalism and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but it's like, wait a minute. Shouldn't it be more like 100% of the people that follow you and that agree with you? Like you've created an echo chamber. Like everyone should agree with you, damn it.
But still, 1 out of 3 is like, no, unions are still good, no matter what you fucking say.
Yeah.
Or net good. It's not like
it's kind of awesome.
I think that's a good way to phrase a question, though. Net good or net bad.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's so easy. You could be like, oh, look at this example of this corrupt union.
Precisely. Yeah. No, that probably steal that. But yeah, it's a very helpful word to add at the beginning. Good. I like it. But yeah. I thought it's great that the ultimate premise at the very beginning of it was they were talking about how like, oh well, our employees cost more, we have to pass the cost along, this is going to cost this is going to cost that. It's like, right, because prices have to increase because profits can't decrease. Like,
right.
And we're not even talking about like edging your way into unprofitability. We're talking about just your profitability diminishing a little bit.
Right. And that's the thing that people who like talk shit about, we'll have to do another show on post growth. I think or degrowth. I don't think we ever did, even though we've talked about it before. Or have we?
We did, but it was like 1.5 episodes, so we could definitely talk about it again.
Okay. Anyway, I've been seeing a lot of like pushback against degrowth as a philosophy or as a economic perspective or a perspective on how to deal with the world's problems, right? Or how to navigate the future, the uncertain future, right? Well, and they keep pushing back against it, but I think you brought up an excellent point, is that the whole thing about growth is that because, well, then if you take away from the shareholders, well, if you have less profit, then that takes away from the shareholders, and then the shareholders, they have that money leveraged for something else and something else and something else and something else, and so like the whole fucking system collapses if you don't keep feeding it.
It sounds like a house of cards almost,
and that is precisely.
And houses of cards are normally pyramid shaped.
Triangular. Yes. Pyramidal, hierarchical. Yeah, but I mean, seriously, like the whole system just like has to keep feeding itself. So like the only way to pay more wages by their logic is to extract more from consumers. At some point, consumers stop consuming,
Yeah.
especially things like inelastic goods like oil, like people will always use housing, people will always need, but no matter how
Food. Yeah.
expensive it is, right? We
Yeah.
talked about that a lot. But the oil thing too, like even though oil is inelastic, it's the master resource, right? In our society,
Yeah.
in our industrial economy. It's the master resource. Yet you do notice behavior changes when its fucking price to consumers goes up a lot. People actually do, especially people like us who live a lot closer,
Yeah.
a lot closer to the margin than a lot of people. Like we definitely like, oh, we're gonna run those errands all on the same day because that one's way over there and that other place is over there and that other place is not too far.
Right.
And we're gonna all do that in one go. So instead of doing 3 different trips
Yeah.
and 30 miles, we do 3 trips and 10 miles or
Right.
whatever. Or 12 miles or whatever. And we do make behavioral changes to consume less, even though you still have to consume it. The thing about like they're like, that guy that was saying that shit worth $200 million.
Oh, he might.
They're gonna raise the price of fucking parcel shipping like $6 for 2 pounds. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The fact that people used to have to ride fucking horses with paper mail, to get messages. Our fucking country, the communication in our country started with people walking and or riding horses place to place to spread information and goods.
Yeah.
And like people made their entire career and livelihood and life as traders, and they would spend 4 years going to the Orient and 4 or 5 years coming back. You know what I mean? Like,
right, and trying to make it their last
and trade back, and that's what they did because that's how things moved, is by fucking oxen or mule or whatever, camel, right? And so the fact that like you're like $8, that just really exposes Nate Hagen's concept of or it's not his exclusively, but he talks a lot about energy slaves and how like we are so accustomed to having access to unlimited amounts, for all intents and purposes, unlimited amounts of energy, that they're like $4 more to ship that 2-pound object like from Atlanta to where I live in LA. That's outrageous. And it's like
that's 2,000 miles.
Used to have to carry something, and you would never get anything that wasn't created in your region. That wasn't manufactured in your region or grown or produced, and the vast majority of production was done at the household or village scale.
I mean, it's very telling that the arms market kind of took off at the same time as the railroads. Like, because that's a heavy thing to ship.
Yeah.
Shipping arms is a heavy business. And so it really took off when railroads were like, shit, man, pack up a car. We'll take 10,000 guns, whatever.
Yeah, and the train was responsible for industrial scale slaughter for sure. The American Civil War, coincidentally, was the first war, as far as I know, that utilized trains in mass slaughter to move goods and goods and personnel. At any rate, I just thought it was really kind of insulting. The booty shorts and the roll the window, they never covered the air conditioner thing, but that was kind of like, oh yeah, they have their window down. Like, how bad could it be? And it's like, they move 100-pound packages or 40, 50, whatever. They move some very large packages, right?
I watched
cumbersome packages.
So I watched a dude, push a huge box up the stairs, and I was like, I could help, and he was like, if anything happened, I might get in trouble. I was like, fuck. Can't even accept the help of a neighbor. I mean, he made it up, but it didn't look pleasant.
Yeah, and he brought it all the way to the top. Yeah, and so it's super physical.
Yeah.
They're driving around. Now they're gonna get they've said we want air conditioning in our trucks. And I think that's great because then at least they can kind of cool off between package drops.
Yeah, one guy that the wife knows was saying he drives for UPS, and he was like, I'm worried it's going to reduce the fuel efficiency so much because they open the door so often that if it's on, he'll have to stop and get fuel more often just due to the fact you're trying to keep that area cool
and make it harder for him to meet his
right. And so you might
they're doing
extend.
100 or 100 to 120 drops a day is what I read.
It's a ton, yeah.
It's a lot. And so they're driving around, and then they're like, even when we have one, they still like all that walking. You can imagine your apartment, they pull up, they got to walk. He's got to push a heavy package up a flight of fucking stairs. Even my house, it's not that far. It's only like 60 feet. But when you add all that shit up all day, walking 200 feet to and from, and they're working 9-hour days, and it's fucking 105, 110, depending on where you are. Like, are super fucking humid, like in the South near wet bulb. And they're like, we have to get this done if we want to keep this. And they have so few of these really awesome positions. I'm not going to fuck around and risk that. Yeah, it's crazy. You have another article. You want to read it?
Yeah. Pretty hopeful. Maybe, maybe we're not all doomed. But it says a UPS driver's new $170,000 per year deal shows that unions and Joe Biden may just save the middle class after all. Maybe there's hope for the middle class under Bidenomics after all.
That's gross propaganda in that headline.
Yeah. Well, and they did after all twice. Come on, man. Come up with some different wording.
Yeah, and also like that Joe Biden has nothing to do with that. In fact, like if UPS asked him, he would break the strike like he did for the fucking rail workers.
So I'm not even going to read this because it's terrible.
Well, right, and it's not. It's kind of a lot of the stuff that they were saying. 170,000. That's ridiculous.
It's written like a fluff piece. Dogs might be so or might not be so happy to know
what's
that there's
the source on it.
This one is Fortune.
Yeah, Fortune magazine, which is a major publication.
Yeah,
it's a different style of writing. So yeah,
very different style.
It's a symbolic triumph for unions in the middle. Again, also, UPS could have been like, hey, like they said, and kind of like we had discussed last week, I think. We're like, it's kind of a big fucking deal. Like they might have caved just because like the consequences of them going on strike would have been so much worse. Right.
Well, and then again, you get back to railways, they might have gotten shut down and forced to accept much less than was being offered right then.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any way to know.
And he's like, oh, his famous adoration of ice cream eclipsed by this is a fucking election puff piece. You're absolutely 100%.
Yeah. It's completely just written with like no real meat. I hate it. I don't even want to read it. Nope.
But what I thought was interesting is this just this idea that they're going to make 170,000. That's what they keep putting in the headline.
Yeah.
Part of me was suspect of that because I was like, are they putting that in the headlines? And they're like, okay, we'll give you this, but like we anticipate two things. One, we're going to just pass that on to consumers, and then that's going to help facilitate like venture capital investment in fucking driverless trucks or whatever.
Right.
And then, or any other kinds of technologies to reduce reliance on human beings. Right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the sort of stuff that I've been cautioning against for a long time is like, we got to, put ourselves in a position of good bargaining before all the great AI and robots are made. Because once those exist, you don't have a bargaining point.
Yeah. But the thing is too, is I can't help but think like, plastering that 170,000 around with no fucking context, like those guys in the previous video did.
Yeah,
they're just like, oh, they're gonna make so much money, it's gonna cost. We're gonna have to. Guy with $200 million worth $200 million is like, I don't want to pay an extra $6 for a parcel, and I don't want to pay $10 more for fucking Amazon Prime. Like, what in the actual fuck?
Maybe he ships things as part of his $200 million empire.
I'm sure he does. It's at any rate, it just seems like really complaining and like that in that way. They're like, oh, see, they're benefiting and you're getting hurt. The masses of consumer, they're doing this thing. I'm sure there's probably some ESG attached to it. Equity, sustainability, and the governance objective, the woke corporate culture or some fucking bullshit. But this 170 figure is not accurate. Number one, the vast majority of the workers will not make remotely fucking close to that.
Yeah.
Because if you're working 20 or 30 hours a week at $22 an hour, you will not make $170,000 a year. Sorry.
Not even 145.
And that also includes benefits. right? So
Well,
they're again, like you had said earlier, they're like, oh, you don't actually get paid 30,000, you get paid 65,000.
I think what's
Yeah, please go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think what's kind of disgusting. I was just thinking about it is the idea that he's like, oh yeah, the shipping's going to go up, and it's like, cool. In the last, I think 5 years, I have shipped 0 packages. I'm about
You're
to do
about to ship
so.
one now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm about to do one for the first time, ever. So like, it's not like I think for the average person shipping something once a year, or
The Christmas gifts or whatever.
yeah, it's going to be like, oh, I just broke the bank. It's going to be like, oh no, okay, that's just an extra cost. It's the big businesses that have to ship shit, where they're going to be like, oh no, UPS
And
did
guess
it.
what?
Now FedEx employees are going to feel emboldened. Yeah, next thing you know, government workers might try. Go ahead.
All of us are paying for the fucking infrastructure that UPS uses to do that for business.
That's true.
Yeah, and so and that's the thing about trying to like break it up into this kind of like really individualistic, like, fucking free, like fantasy free market or whatever is that like there's no way to untangle where one person's contribution ends and the other begins. Like it's impossible to entangle. So like some things we're just gonna have to agree on. I was saying though that this 170,000 figure, I think is meant to like sow division, like low key sow division.
Yeah.
Because how many people are like, well, fuck that. Why are they getting paid? I mean, those guys are
It's the
100
same
millionaires,
shit. Yeah.
and we're like, why? They're just driving around in their booty shorts, which to me, I forgot to mention earlier, was one of the things that stood out too. Not just the windows thing and the ignoring the air conditioning thing, but like essentially like referring to them as effeminate or like fags. Like gay, like their little booty shorts. Like they're not really real manly men. They're not real men because they're not entrepreneurs, right? No, did you not get that? Am I just like
No,
fabricating that shit in my head?
no. I think at the end of it, I might have been like focused on something else, and it was
Okay.
all just kind of like blustery nonsense to
Yeah,
me.
he's like, oh yeah, they just drive around their shorts, their little booty shorts. Bro, first of all, they're just shorts. Like, and if I was hot and I was moving around a lot, I would probably want a pair of shorts that fit me fairly well. Otherwise, you're just gonna fucking chafe. And every dude knows that nothing's worse than like fucking chapping your ass cheeks, making your fucking scrot all fucking fucked up. Anyway, this next item is something I thought was fascinating because I think last week we kind of discussed a bit. Like, it would be a really fucking big deal if they let them strike. So what are potentially some reasons? And I didn't have a chance to dig super deeply, but this is actually from the comptroller of New York City, writing the CEO of UPS, explaining, and I'll just summarize it really quick. This was July 19th, so just a handful of weeks ago. That was actually my day I quit smoking, so just barely over 3 weeks ago.
And I'll be back shortly.
Yeah, sure. I wasn't going to read the whole thing, but I'll wrap this up. So anyway, it's from the New York City comptroller, and he says, or he reveals here that the city of New York's pension, investments, they have their own pension plan and investments or whatever. The pension, New York City employee pension has $191 million in UPS stock. That's like almost $200 million, which I mean, New York City is a big, I don't even know that. I imagine their pension is probably in the many billions, maybe even tens of billions in investments. But ultimately, 200 million is still a really big deal, especially when pensions are, stressed by a variety of factors, including like a lot of people aging and retiring out, and baby boomers able to live longer and collect money longer, and all the like. And so like 200 million is a lot. And so he's just basically like, hey, he butters them up. We believe in UPS approach to service delivery. And he's like, but we're pretty distressed to learn the breakdown in contract negotiations. And then he just begs them to kind of like do it. Low pay contributes to the high turnover rates UPS experiences among its part-time employees. As shareholders with a vested interest in long-term success of the company, Um, we're asking you these questions and letting you know basically that if this strike happens, they're going to lose income from the complete shutdown of its U.S. operation, a loss of market share, which is a big deal for the New York City pensions because they have almost $200 million invested in UPS, and then negative effects on the overall U.S. economy, on which the global performance of UPS is highly dependent. And we kind of were always looking at that, like, oh shit, there's a really it's very important to have at this point in the world we live in, like parcel service is something people expect.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And businesses operate on it. And we saw with COVID, like it doesn't take a lot to really like throw a fucking wrench in everything. But I thought it was just really interesting because we're like, I wonder if they got any pressure from like governments or anything.
I mean, it sounds like they did. That's a New
Like,
York. That's a city
yeah,
government, a big
exactly.
city
The New
government.
York City pension was like,
Yeah.
hey, we have a lot of money in your company, like a lot of money, and we're going to fucking lose a lot of money. And I was saying when you stepped away, most pensions in America, I'm sure New York City as well, are stressed because so many people are retiring, and then retirees are living longer, and you know, investments have not outperformed or whatever.
Right.
So, at any rate, I thought that was really interesting, and it adds some context. And it says that they were getting pressure not just from unions. There was at least some government. I'm not sure if the federal government or any representatives thereof like sent letters or anything about like, hey, we really want to avoid this. Like, let's see what we can do or whatnot. But it was interesting. I did want to provide just at least like one little data point that says, yeah, governments were involved in because they're heavily invested in it. So yeah, and it's they were talking mostly about part-time employees, which is great because the full-time employees stuck up for them and they said, hey, we don't want these guys to start working here and then leave in 6 months because it's not good for anybody. I'm tired. It's kind of like me. Like, I'm tired of working overtime. Like, just please hire some competent people that'll stick around.
Yeah.
You know, please.
Well, I mean, and I think that's how it gets for most people, because companies are just willing to let that attrition happen.
Well, yeah. I don't know about UPS, but I've heard that like in some businesses, small businesses, even though it's like a McDonald's, like it's a franchise,
Right?
It's franchisee, and so technically they could be a small business owner, even though they own a McDonald's. And there's all sorts of credits for training employees for small businesses, like what do they call it, workforce development or some shit like that.
Oh, gotcha.
And so they'll get like stipends or subsidies to
If
train
they
people.
train
Like,
people.
I don't give a shit if they turn over because I get paid every time someone comes. But realistically speaking, the business does better.
Yeah.
With competent employees that have the proper training, that understand the operation, that can do the operation without supervision.
Right.
Like,
right.
and there are so many benefits. I actually made that argument for housing. Like, it's like if you build a bunch of social housing for like the really poor people, poor single mothers, people, you know, like leaving domestic violence and all that other stuff, and you build it instead of building another fucking strip mall next to this strip mall. These strip malls have, because it's like, oh, this is zoned commercial. We're going to build another strip mall here or box store, right? I'm like, right, but those two strip malls right there have vacancies, right? And I was like, and if you put housing here, like low income housing, you now have people who can afford housing and not get paid a lot. And they might have an incentive to work long term at your restaurant as a dishwasher or a waiter or a cook or whatever. They might have an incentive to work there maybe longer because it's a short walk from work. They don't have to pay for a car, right? It's really easy when they want to run home on their lunch break, or you know, they're kind of need to pop in periodically across the day because they have an elderly parent living with them or whatever their situation might be, right? It makes sense to co-locate you know,
Well, yeah, and you can have smaller scale
housing or affordable housing with low wage work. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and at that strip mall or even a mall, honestly, like you can have a grocery store. Like, there's no reason why you can't. It's got the air conditioning and the power to keep everything cool. So, like, There you go.
Yeah.
Now you
Those
don't
two
have a
strip
food
malls I
desert.
was talking. Sorry, I cut you off.
I was gonna say now you don't have to have a food desert, but which ones were you talking about?
Oh, no, I was gonna say that. Yeah, exactly. Then you're instead of putting fucking poor people way far away from where they get food, fresh food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually the specific location I was speaking about, there each of the strip malls has a fucking grocery store.
Mm.
So there's 2 grocery stores.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah, there's 2 big vacant lots over by on the other side of East Avenue from me, like over by the kids' school.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been vacant, and they're like, it's zoned commercial, and it's like, you'd be a goddamn, only like some Wall Street bank is going to pay to build something there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to bet against it. They're going to be like, oh, this will lose money and go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll be great.
It'll be great. And they'll bet against it and they'll make money. They'll make money on it failing. And then we're left with what? Like, yeah, an unfinished
Nothing.
strip mall, or a
nothing.
strip mall that has a bunch of vacancies because businesses can't afford the fucking space. Yeah. At any rate,
Absolutely.
let's move on. What are we on to next? Oh, digital
we're
rights management.
Digital rights management or management.
I didn't have a chance to catch up on all of this. I remember you talking about it, and I did watch part of this.
It's okay.
Part of it with my partner.
I mean, just as a primer, digital rights are just any sort of security measurements that prevent you from freely using software. Like back in the day, they would have printed a code on the inside of a game manual that you would have then had to enter. In a more modern era, you either get a code from the service that you're basically renting the program from, or by buying it, you're buying it from their store. Like if you get something on like Steam or the Microsoft store or whatever, it only exists in that store and usually will stop working if you don't have the store.
Interesting.
And so it's just a way of making it so you don't own anything. and it came in under the guise of like, oh, you wouldn't steal steal a car, you wouldn't steal this, so why would you steal a movie? It came in under those scare tactics, where they were just like, oh my god, everybody's stealing everything, businesses, not Wall Street, sorry, Hollywood's gonna go under, and it's like, no, they're not. People still want to go see things in the theater. This is applying it to Google and browsing the internet, and it's already been done a little bit. Like the internet used to be much more wild west, and like finding websites took more networking, and now it's just you search through Google, and if you don't find it, then you give up.
You keep clicking through pages.
Yeah, until you find it,
because you'll probably find it. Or what I do is if I'm not really finding it quickly, I'll either add search terms or like it was funny because my ex-wife, it was a journalist, and like I'm explaining to her when she's like trying to do research for her job where she did financial reporting. She's like, wait, how do you find that? And then I was like, yeah, you can press like, so if you type something and you're getting a lot of results that kind of have the same word, and those results are not what you're looking for, you can actually remove that word. So it'll search for your term, and then it'll remove everything with that other term. And it's like, whoa. And
and like commas and colons
around it if you want a direct quotation.
Exactly, yeah.
Etc. and so forth. Yeah. You can actually search a website through Google, right? Like, and usually most bigger websites probably just use Google search on their website anyway, like as their own like internal search. But you can search a site by typing site : write the name of the URL, and it's like, wow, I didn't know this. It makes if you understand how to use a fucking search engine, which like I didn't learn in school because computers weren't really a thing. But I wish that when I got to college, at least.
I lived in a bougie neighborhood, so computers were a thing. I only recognized the bouginess now as an adult, because I'm like, what do you mean you didn't have computers since like kindergarten? What?
Well, we had a computer, but my dad was a programmer, so it was his computer.
Oh, well, we had them in school. It was from first grade on, and we're like taught to use them. It's like
we had we had to take computer lab in the 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah. from first grade on. And then I had family members who had it and stuff like that. So that helps. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so he's just talking about, you know, the DRM and his opinion on it and where he thinks it might go.
Let's do this.
Some examples of scenarios where users depend on client trust include users like visiting websites that are expensive to create and maintain, but they often want or need to do it without paying directly. These websites fund themselves with ads, but the advertisers can only afford to pay for humans to see the ads rather than robots. This creates a need for human users to prove to websites that they're human, sometimes through tasks like challenges or logins. This is about making it more difficult to block ads. I'm just going to throw that out there. I am not a technical expert. I'm not a programming expert. I am a man that used to fix MacBook motherboards that now sits on a comically large recliner with a cat. I'm just going to throw it out there. This is going to be used to make it more difficult to block advertisements and to make it easier for streaming companies and so on and so forth to be able to ensure that you are not using a screen capture software or screen recorder like OBS to record their copyrighted content and distribute it across the internet.
And that is already a thing you were able to do. You can do, you know, miraculous things with YouTube and, you know, VLC or any number of recorders to get access to videos that maybe YouTube and therefore Google would not want you to have, even though nothing that you're doing is illegal. They're trying to basically, yeah, it's basically a goal of blocking off all the things that you're currently doing that are legal and bring them under the control of one company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you have another section of this.
I do. He goes on.
We haven't even started talking about fucking Lizzo in around an hour.
No, we will. We'll get there. We got 9 minutes. That's good.
Again, I'm a man that sits in an old lounge chair who used to fix MacBook motherboards, who has a cat that is unfortunately absent from this video.
It does eventually show up.
Welcome now that I've moved my phone. I am not an expert in this field. That being said, does this not sound like DRM for the internet to you? It really does sound like DRM for the web
The
to
whole
me.
internet.
This sounds like a world where you want me to use your browser. Your browser is likely going to have certain limitations in it as to what it is I'm capable of doing with it. And if I don't use your web browser that has this feature and functionality turned on, that there are many websites that are no longer going to accept my traffic. They're going to say no to you. Now, technically, this is something that you've been able to do for a long time. I can detect if you are using Firefox and say, my website will not work as long as your user ID is Firefox. I am going to require you use Internet Explorer 5 or 6. And if you don't, I'm not going to return you a site.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
Interesting.
I don't know how much this applies to your average person. I know it applies a lot in banking. That's my experience with it. And I know there's other companies, but basically banking is slow to make big changes. And so like a lot of times, they were like, oh, our website only works on Internet Explorer 9 or 10. I forget what they stopped at. And if you try to access it through another one, it probably won't work. And so that got, it like came to a head, not when Mozilla Firefox came out, because it had been out for a very long time and barely gained any traction, but it was when Chrome came out and got included with every single phone, basically doing the thing that Microsoft got in trouble for previously, by bundling a browser and making
a device with the software.
And basically making it so you had to use it. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but you get your browsers through the Google Play Store, so you have to go within their environment unless you go through a very elaborate process, turn off all the protections that your phone has, and like you actually have to like acknowledge something that says like I waive all rights. Like from this point forward, this turned on, everything's my fault. And then it allows you to install external external applications from outside of the Google Play Store. And like, when I played Pokemon Go, I had to do that because my phone technically wouldn't run it, but with some modifications and a bit of effort, it would.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it seems like the whole goal is to just make it so that almost everything already runs off Google. Google can be like, hey, companies, if you want to like make your website available for other browsers, we're just not going to host you.
Yeah.
And that's a massive amount of power to wield, to just be like, nope, if you make yourself available through anything other than Chrome, you're cut off.
Yeah. You got more to this, yeah?
No, that's actually it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, I mean, there's all sorts of kind of dystopian shit when it comes to computers. Like, I think people's worst fears are going to be closer to realized. I don't really see it going. I don't see it getting back to its distributed kind of anarchic, if you want to call it that. But
Right.
getting back to those roots, I think that
Yeah.
um when the US government decided to like basically give control of the network to private companies, that was the beginning of the end. Like
Yeah. Well, and right now
when
you have groups that are trying to decentralize things like email, uh, with limited success. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is called Proton Mail,
yeah.
and it's just a decentralized way of exchanging emails, still with end-to-end encryption. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not just talking about like surveillance, which is a huge part of it, but just this, like it becoming going from a place where like people used it to share research, which is why it was created, to help facilitate
right,
learning about the world we
the
live in.
exchange of data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crunching of numbers, right? Because then you can network computers to help each other. You didn't need these big, expensive, huge buildings of supercomputers anymore, because now everybody's personal computer could be networked into a supercomputer, right?
Yep.
That's the basic concept of the
Man,
internet, right?
Boink came out in 2002.
What did?
Boink, the Berkeley Open Internet Network, something open infrastructure for network computing. That was like the big, as far as I can tell, that was the beginning of networked compute, where like each one acted as like a core inside of a server and did a bunch of work, and then for validation's sake, they would send out a work task to multiple people to make sure it all came back consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy shit since 2002.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, that's really interesting stuff. And I do always worry about like internet, just like the digital dystopia.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, the way that I'm looking at like climate disasters everywhere, like
Mhm.
this year has just been fucking bananas, bro. It's one after the other.
Mhm.
And
California's not on fire, so it's hard to pay. It's hard to feel too bad. Like, all
yeah,
right.
yeah, it's like Maui. Oh my God, 50 people. I think did they die? 50 died, or
I
50
don't
homes
know.
got destroyed. I think it might have been 50 people died, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, we lost 80 something in the campfire, but
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no.
was it 50 something?
53, yeah.
53.
So far.
Yeah, and so those fires, it's like, oh my God. And then most people are like, oh, but it's paradise. And it's like, well,
it's a fucking lava. There's
paradise
liquid.
is actually near Chico, and it burned down. So
Yeah.
At any rate, yeah, it's kind of a little numb to it, but it's just the sheer volume of it, dude.
Yeah.
It's like floods fucking everywhere. It's the fact that like the winter in the southern hemisphere is like really warm.
Well, and we've had such a weird damn summer this year compared to last year. It's just so much variability from year to year.
Yeah, this summer's been really mild.
Yeah, it's scary.
Like compared to what our normal summers are.
Yeah, like I just went outside to water like an hour prior to this, maybe an hour and a half, and just fucking nice little breeze coming through, dark clouds in the sky, maybe some pockets of rain. I don't know. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, man, like what was the high today? Like 95.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like where we live. Like if it's less than triple digits, that's good.
It's gonna be.
And 95 is really not bad at all. Like it got to like 62 last night, and so like 95 during the day and 62 at night is like all I would be my ideal summer temperature in a place that gets hot.
Yeah.
Because then you can cool the whole house down, and like you're not running the fucking AC all day. You really don't even need to run it at all if you don't want to, or at least you're only running it for the last couple hours of the day. Is if your house is well insulated, right?
Right. Hopefully it is.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. Do we have time? It's been an hour. We can call it now, or we can. This is really a shooting the poodoo kind of story.
Yeah, I don't mind it. This is some great poodoo.
Moving on now, rapper Lizzo is being accused by 3 of her former backup dancers of sexual harassment and weight shaming. The lawsuit accuses the Grammy-winning singer and her production house of creating a hostile work environment through sexual, racial and religious harassment in several incidents between 2021 and 2023. Lizzo allegedly forced one of her dancers to touch a nude performer at a club in Amsterdam, even after she repeatedly voiced her discomfort. The singer's dance team captain has also been accused of constantly berating to her performers, making sexually explicit comments. One of the dancers claims that she had been confined to a room against her will and was told that she was not allowed to leave until she submitted to a search of the contents of her phone. Lizzo's team members have also been accused of pushing their religious beliefs upon other performers. The dancers added that the rapper, known as an advocate of self-love, indirectly criticized the dancer's recent weight gain as well. Fans of the singer voiced their disbelief over the lawsuit on social media, while one spoke about how the news caught them off guard. Another fan said that they were surprised since Lizzo had always gone out of her way to be perceived as a safe space. The singer hasn't officially addressed this lawsuit yet.
I assume that's it.
It was. Now it's just kind of an interesting and neat summary. I think one of the more interesting things about it is that there's very little context. I think this Joe Rogan clip, Tim Dillon talks a little bit about it. So let's go ahead and play that. And if it doesn't because I did a bunch of research, it's just impractical to put every link.
What
dude? In the documentation I'm making for the chicken thing, I'm like, I referenced dozens of videos. Here are seven.
Here are several.
Here are several.
What is she accused of?
Fat shaming them, making them rehearse, making them stand up. That's what their version of fat shaming is. Making them stand up and walk onto the stage. Making them rehearse, taking them to a sex club in Amsterdam where the performers are shooting bananas out of their pussies because this is what happens. And Lizzo's like forcing them to touch the nude performers and force one of them to eat a banana that came out of the vagina of a performer, dancer in the sex club. Lizzo makes the girl, she's like, eat the banana. And then the girl gets really angry at that. But supposedly, Lizzo was just abusing her power. This is what they're all saying. But I don't know if I buy that. I think it's bitter people, maybe, that are angry. Because they all look like Lizzo. This is what's going to drive them nuts. They look exactly like her. And she's worth $40 million, and they're probably getting paid shit. So they're in the background every night dancing. And it ain't easy. It's fun to be on that TV show that she had, but then you have to do it every night. And they're icing their joints. You know, it's hard. They're in the trailer. It's fucking tough. Lizzo had to start getting on some of them, going like, you got to tone it down. You know, it's becoming a problem. You know, the weight is becoming a problem. And then Lizzo's response was she's like, I would never fire any of them because of their weight. It's like, what a weird statement. They're dancers. How fat can they get? How fucking big can they get? If I wanted to be a dancer for Taylor Swift and she came up to me and went, you're too fat to do this, I'd go, that makes sense. And I'd leave with some dignity. But these women, Lizzo has them on stage, she has them dancing, and then all of a sudden, you know, she's abusing or making them do weird shit. And they all are now suing her, and her streaming has slowed down big time. The ads, you know how it is. It's a big cancellation.
Big cancellation. They're trying to cancel Lizzo. So one of the things that I did was look to see if Lizzo had criticized U.S. funding of Ukraine, among other kinds of.
As a hint, they're like, that's the first thing.
I'm trying to find out why are they trying to cancel Lizzo.
Okay. It's because she harbors the woke mind virus.
Does she? Body positivity.
Yeah.
It's the woke mind virus. Maybe. I do think that, like, I mean, I think this article covers a little bit, so maybe we'll read this one first. But it's tough, dude. like I was watching there was like a YouTube short or TikTok or whatever that came across my feed the other day, and it was just talking about tonality and how like that can change the meaning of words.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about sarcasm, my favorite thing in the world. Like literally just saying the words differently from the way you normally say them completely changes what they mean. They become the
Right.
opposite.
Yeah, and so like I'm wondering, okay, the person said, "Hey, I was uncomfortable and like I felt compelled to do it."
Mm-hmm.
But like, okay, right. I feel compelled to do it, so I'm being coerced. When like
Well,
it could be like, do it, do it, do
well,
it.
I
Like
mean,
it could be all fucking
it's
drunk at a fucking strip club,
right,
and they could
right.
be egging him on, and she could be
Yeah,
like, she made me do it. She kept telling me to do it. But like, what is the actual like tonality and context, like
right.
the body language and the verbal cues that actually tell you if she was trying to power over someone,
Well,
or if they just
clearly,
fucking got out of hand and she was just like, eat the banana, like,
yeah, yeah.
because that
I
sounds like
mean,
something we would do.
clearly, she did the like, villain trope on TV where she turned to the person who is the camera, where she's like, eat the banana. Everything kind of slowed down a bit, it shifted, lighting changed, and Lizzo was just like, eat the banana. That's how you know.
But yeah, and
The
then
the allegation is enough to cause concern.
yeah,
And as with all these, things, I'm just like, can we just like give it some time before we jump on and start canceling people or whatever? It's like there's plenty of time to ruin someone's
they
life. We have all the
canceled.
time in the world.
Yeah, they canceled a music festival in Philadelphia where she was one of the 2 or 3 headliners.
Oh no!
Yeah.
That's terrible, especially if you
Yeah,
already
they're
paid.
canceling her just based on this allegation. And there's a couple other points that I wanted to make. So this article, I think, actually does kind of, I think, validate that she's not the fucking. They're like, oh, it hurts her brand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why did
Oh,
you make her a
oh
fucking
yeah,
brand
oh yeah.
anyway? Like,
So okay, so I'm gonna come back to me. I'm gonna come back to me because I have something to say. So
yeah, because
I've
you
been
are way
I've
more
been
into her.
to
You've seen her in concert and shit.
I've been to a Lizzo concert. Worst experience I ever had at a concert.
Really?
I'm never going to another concert with more than like a couple hundred people ever again because of it.
Was it a huge concert?
Huge concert. And I mean, I've been to huge concerts. You and I went to fucking Tool together, Sleep Train Amphitheater. Like, all we did was we backed off to the very edge of the fucking, viewable area and listened to the music without regard to the stagecraft that was going on, because
Yeah.
Maynard typically doesn't even face the camera anyway.
Yeah, and it was
But-
all projected, or they
Yeah.
had their psychedelic trippy ass visual
Right.
and light show. Yeah,
But for Lizzo, it's all about like what's going on the stage, and even in the precursor acts, you had people, and the only thing I could do to see what was going on was look at the screen, and I'm like, wow, I could look at the screen at home.
yeah.
Like being here live is doing nothing for me, and then
Except making you sit in traffic forever afterwards.
actually we left early to avoid traffic. We
Nice.
left like probably 15 minutes early. But the thing is, like, there was no value added to being live just due to the fact that as soon as Lizzo came out, all these young people with knees that function stood up. And so I had to stand up with my knees that don't function in order to see what was going on, but not even on the stage, only on the screen. And like very occasionally, they'd shift from one part of the stage to the other, and I could see it. I'm just like, man, this is some bullshit.
If I really, really want to go to a music festival, I will most likely buy VIP tickets, because if it's worth it enough for me to pay to go,
we spoke about this.
We did
For after,
because then instead of walking between main stages, the VIP areas between them, and you can just move from one side of the VIP
there's
area
bathrooms
to the
in between. It's fantastic.
Plus, you probably save, make your the money back just on fucking booze savings.
I am trying to stick to 500 or less. I think is a good number. But really like 300 or fewer, because I went to a great concert. It was Sierra Farrell, who was like kind of like country bluegrass, mix. But like, has tattoos and stuff like that, and doesn't care about it, and just like whatever, like country doesn't mean you're plain. But yeah, that it was a good venue. It was a good concert. It was very small, very cozy. A lot of crowd interaction. Like that is much more enjoyable than sitting in a crowd of like 10,000 people or something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Moving on.
So this article kind of covers a lot of the stuff that the WION did, I believe. This is like right when the story broke, right? Multiple collaborators.
Yeah. Exactly.
Can you scroll down?
Yep.
Oh, is it a video? No, it's an article.
No, not a video. That's right.
And if you scroll, like, so they talk about abuse of power, arrogant, disrespectful. Okay, she could be a bitch. Like people that I used to idolize, like, are assholes. Like, especially musicians, traveling musicians.
Oh
At
yeah.
a certain point, you've been doing it for fucking so long, and you've had to deal with stupid fucking fans in every fucking city you've been in. I remember I went to a small festival at Arco Arena, and Cake was one of the bands that was headlining.
Oh, lucky.
I've seen Cake a lot. They're like one of my favorite bands. And they're also a local band, so like they play a lot of regional shows.
Yeah.
They actually played Reading not long ago, and then we almost went, but then we're like, I don't want to fucking drag the kids to Reading, although it'd be cool because it was at a place that was like meant for families, and they kind of tried to stress like, hey, this concert is for families. But at any rate, I went and Cake, and some people were just like throwing shit up on stage, and they straight up like stopped. They walked off stage. The show promoters, which was the local radio station, came out. Were like, hey, don't do that. And then when they came back out on stage, they said one person throws a fucking penny towards the stage, like, we are done and we are not playing.
Yeah.
And it was a total reasonable request.
Yeah. Don't throw shit at me.
Fucking being a dick too. He was a fucking asshole about it. And it's just like some musicians want to fucking party and throw beers at each other, and they'll fucking drink a beer and throw it at the crowd. Like, some people want to do that shit. I went to like a minor punk show where it's like some Israeli band. They were really fucking weird. The guy was like taking people's pizza out of their hands because there's a pizza parlor, and like rubbing it on his face and shit. It was fucking bizarre, and not my scene, but I was there chasing, doing it for other people.
I can't think how I would react to someone touching my pizza.
Oh, I was fucking pissed.
I might fucking break.
And I think I left shortly after that because it was like, it's like the music's not even good, and it's just like, oh, edgy, because I'm like fucking being all gross and weird. Anyway, my point is that like,
I hate for that pizza.
There's different energies at different places.
Yeah.
And Lizzo could be a complete asshole, and like, if you scroll down a little bit, okay, so her former creative director was like, yeah, she's kind of a bitch. Filmmaker was going to do a documentary about her, and she was like, I felt disrespected, so
Yep.
I didn't really want to do it. She's self-centered.
Like,
of course she's self-centered. She's a fucking pop star.
Well, and she made her own clothing line. So I mean, like, she's basically all in on that track to more or less stop doing what made her famous and just have a clothing line.
Yeah, which is great.
I mean, that's the goal, for so many people. It's just like, yeah, I want a clothing line so I can just make money passively.
Yeah, the Kardashians don't fucking do anything. They just fucking own businesses. Remember, we went through this when we were talking about which rich women should fucking fight Oprah or fight each other in the warm up match, or the female version of the
Oprah.
Elon Zuckerberg fight.
I mean, Oprah has magic on her side because she's been in a movie where she was a wizard.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
dude, was that
not a wizard, but like a holy creature?
Yeah, wasn't that was that Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal? Or
no, it was much newer. Oprah movie as witch. Wrinkle in Time. which
A Wrinkle in Time.
A Wrinkle in Time, which just I think off the top of my head is
C.S. Lewis stuff, right? That's one line Witch in the Wardrobe, right?
Pretty sure.
Like okay. Or something like that. It was one of those books that
I think it's one of the ones that's like
positive Judeo-Christian ethics
yeah.
portrayed in some kind of fantasy story.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, there's a filmmaker, a former creative director, and they're kind of like, yeah, she was kind of a bitch. This kind of abusive, to call it an abuse of power is a little weird. She's like, she was self-centered, she was abusing power. Okay. Earlier in the WION clip, she mentioned that someone, like, one of the charges against her is that she was like kidnapping because she held someone.
Yeah, I wanted more information about that.
So I did find more information about that. Someone that wasn't supposed, they were having like a meeting, her and her dancers or whatever. Someone fucking filmed it. And she found out someone filmed it. And she insisted on no one leaving the meeting until someone copped to it, and then confronted that individual and said, you need to delete that shit. And it's like, that's not uncommon in companies.
Oh yeah. I mean,
to be like, you're not supposed to be. You
signed an NDA. Yeah, I mean, this is
a private fucking meeting.
Yeah,
and they're just trying to get dirt so that they can go viral on social media or whatever.
Yeah. Non-disclosure agreements are completely common all across the spheres. To get inside information without one is pretty rare. Like, even in this sort of sphere, they would want to avoid a leak of movements or anything like that, because like someone could just go and swoop them. Like, if they found out about it like a day or two before the first concert, they could go in and swoop a move real quick and be like, I made this up, and then have it out prior to the concert and be like, oh, Lizzo stole my move, I have evidence, I'm gonna sue.
And so, interesting, two of the plaintiffs were from her reality show a few years ago. And Brooke has actually been approached to be on reality TV shows several times. Being a chef and a butcher.
No, being a female chef and a female butcher.
What?
Being a female chef and a female butcher.
No, I just think that there's a lot of cooking shows, like cooking reality TV shows, cooking competitions and shit. And so they reach out to people and they search LinkedIn and they, search various other sites for people who meet the criteria and who kind of like seem to be maybe interesting. She might have been approached because she is a female, possibly.
I didn't know she was on LinkedIn.
But the screening questions, they're looking for fucking people with issues.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to craft a drama.
Oh, yeah.
They're not interested in a cooking. If you want a cooking competition, go to the county fair, right? They are looking to sell smut, essentially. And so the fact that two of those people were like shifty backhanders, and Tim Dillon says in that clip, he's like, later in that clip, he's like, these people would never be, like, she offered them the opportunity to be a dancer when, like, they would never be a dancer. And to fat shame, he had mentioned, like, they kind of said you need to get up off the bus and move around. I can imagine, like, hey, you're a dancer. Like, you're like, I am totally fine with you looking the way you look, but you still have to be somewhat athletic.
I will say that
you're a fucking dancer.
Yeah. And I will say that is what continues to amaze me watching her live. And then, the videos and everything is like, there's an amazing amount of physicality in what Lizzo does and what the dancers do. And like, it's pretty impressive, and it does, make me wonder, like, man, like, if you move this much, like, all the time, are you eating my pizza?
Yeah. So I did want to, this was interesting. Accused of racial discrimination because the black members were treated differently. One of the things that kept coming up as I was trying to find different information here was, I guess, like, during the George Floyd riots, like, she was really upset and like just kind of basically just being, because I think she's from the upper Midwest, right? Like St. Paul or something. Where is Lizzo from?
Hey, do you want me to do my job or not?
Put it in the chat. Hey Siri. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes,
that's
Detroit.
Oh, she's from Detroit.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, upper Midwest, Great Lakes. Yeah, sure. So not far.
Yep.
At any rate, like just generally being upset, as most of the country has been upset about cops indiscriminately fucking murdering black people. And so like to say, oh, well, she's treating them differently. Like, what does that mean? Is she letting them do things like that you don't get? Like,
get away with more? Is it more restrictive? Is it I expect more of you because you're representative? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm assuming that they feel they were white or Hispanic or something and felt like she was favoring the black dancers. And I'm like, who gives a fuck, bro? You don't have to do that. Right? Like you didn't have to do it. You didn't have to join the reality TV show. You didn't have to try and be an overweight dancer.
I mean, poor people didn't have to join the military. They did. I mean, it really is like I have limited options. Lizzo's putting on a big girls like dance studio on Amazon Prime. Yeah, I'm gonna try out for that.
Generally speaking, though, once you're in the military, they own you. There's a certain power over you.
Yeah.
Where like they can by law, they're likely not going to execute you. I don't see a situation where they execute someone. Because even if we're like the global war on terror wasn't really like quite the same as needing to execute an insubordinate like in the battlefield or whatever.
I mean, it sounds like she would like to execute insubordinates if she could.
But I mean, the thing is that like she did provide them an opportunity they would never have, and I'm not saying that it's right. I did want you to scroll up just a little bit because there's a different part of that.
More.
I did want to get those clips, but there was this part a little bit further up where they say it was see two of the three dancers claimed to have met her during the production of the reality TV show.
Yeah.
A little further up, it actually says so there's enough corroboration here, right?
Yeah,
there's a number of people from different aspects,
and that is where it breaks down for me. Is like one person, okay, cool, like let's hear both sides of the story. Two people, ooh, this is starting to lean in the side. Three or more, and it's like, well, either there is a collaboration of people to defame one person, or one person is putting on a public face and a private persona that is very much different.
Well, one more paragraph up.
Jesus Christ.
I know I skipped to the black members because I thought that was kind of more innocuous.
Yeah.
But this forced to endure sexually denigrating behavior. Wear sexy costumes on stage, or pressured into participating in disturbing sex shows, which is what Tim Dillon was talking about.
Right.
Pressured is different than
Joe Rogan. So anything on the Joe Rogan Experience is questionable for canonicity. Just right off the bat. Anything on the Joe Rogan Experience is of questionable canonicity. Immediately. It needs to, like, you cannot take it at face value. It needs to be broken down and analyzed. No, Truthy the Truth Face, if you get on there and be like, the sky is blue, and I'd be like, fuck, I never thought about it before, but is it really blue?
So, but that's, I think, what the story that Tim Dillon was referring to.
Yeah.
Like pressured into participating. Now, okay, if like the WION article said, hey, she was uncomfortable, and you were kind of like, stop being a little bitch. Like, what is the context? Was she your employer and she was treating you more like friends?
I mean, at this point, I would say it definitely is employer, because they're talking about. No,
she's an employer, but like I was saying about the context of the voice tonality. If they all got drunk at the titty bar and she's like, eat the banana, eat the banana, eat the banana. That's different than you will do this or I will fire you or I will make your life miserable and you will never have a job in this industry again.
But one does not need to say, one does not need to say those words to imply that. Like the power dynamic is in and of itself something where Where like, were I Lizzo, I would never have done that. I would have avoided that entirely. That is not a thing I had to do. That is not a situation I had to put myself or these other people in.
You're a little wiser though,
I
you
am.
don't have
But what
millions of dollars that kind of give you
liquid disconnection from reality. Disconnection from
exactly.
reality. Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is like it is much more believable to me that she was just like in a drunken state. Hey, do this. Well, I don't want to do that. Even if she didn't vocalize it, she'd be like, this person works for you. Do it. And you'd be concerned that if you don't, it's going to come back at you. It's not a direct, like, do it or this, but that's not required. Like, any sort of uncomfortable situation like this is inherently at a power imbalance. And
I understand that.
Yeah.
Quite intimately, actually, because while I was in the Air Force, somebody at I'm probably shouldn't say that. I guess it's far enough removed now. Somebody in our unit kept, like, one of our new trainees kept disappearing for like long periods of time, and it wasn't until afterwards we found out that she was being flown, back to Lackland as a witness in a court-martial trial against a couple training instructors who were sleeping with their cadets. And the point was like, when the court-martial was done, it's like, yeah, even the women involved in it said, oh, it was consensual. But like, the thing is that like, it can't be consensual. Right. And that's the whole idea of fraternization too.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that this probably encompasses, I think that this situation is probably encompassed by that idea. Where it's just like, there is no clear delineation in between, like, me as a private citizen with no affiliation with you is doing it in front of you after some, cajoling, as opposed to me as a person whose livelihood is dependent upon you is doing it after some cajoling because I fear without your expression that I might be fired if I don't do
I need your approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're my boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there is like that power over that's definitely there. But the force to endure sexually denigrating behavior without knowing exactly what it is, was it touching the dancers? Because that's kind of a little weird. Mean, I've never been to the Netherlands, so I don't know. But I know that there's generally no touching rules, if I remember correctly.
You're in the wrong states, my friend.
Oh, okay, maybe. I don't know. It's not really my thing, so I don't know a lot about it.
I did it when I was younger. I don't do it anymore.
I never really even did it a lot when I was younger. A couple times.
I had friends.
Just so that I could be like, yeah, I've done it, right?
Yeah.
And at any rate, like, I was thinking that, and I was talking to my partner about this, and she's like, bro, like, Janet Jackson straight up, like, took people out of the audience. She had a tour where there was this whole bit where she'd just pick a dude out of the audience and strap him to a table on stage and then, like, fucking dry hump him until he fucking finished. Like, and I thought she was joking when she's like, no, she's straight up like gets these guys to completion. And I was like, no, that's fucking stupid. Maybe she's just being all set. No, she put him on stage. She was rubbing against him, grabbed fucking dick, jerking him off through the pants, then put the table flat. Stuff real quick. What's that?
Google
up. No, I was disturbing, but I'm like, also, like, Lizzo's running around in like fucking like mostly naked most of the time. Like, and her dancers' costumes are pretty revealing, and like they kind of do that body positivity and like kind of that queer adjacent stuff, right? Like, one of the people one of the dancers in that photo was clearly like trans, right? Like, and so like there's definitely a lot of like queer shit going on, and like, but that's the thing, is that like you cross from being this kind of like edgy countercultural thing to now you are worth a lot of money and you need to fucking cover your ass because these disgruntled former fucking reality show contestants are going to come for your fucking money. Go back to the end of that article. I know you're super eager because we're at an hour and a half.
No, not at all. I
wanted to just, because here were some reasonable kind of people. And I thought that these reasonable approaches should be highlighted. If you go, So right here, looking at Allison's experience with Lizzo, this guy who's commenting on it, has more than 60,000 followers, which is not that fucking impressive. I mean, it's better than I got, but like, how does that like then make you an authority, right? At any rate, Lizzo is allowed to be mean, and she's allowed to be arrogant and self-centered and unkind. She's allowed to be a wolf. She's allowed to be a shark if she wants to be. She's not required to be humble or jolly or soft. And then, of course, it's like, and some people are like, oh, why do we expect women to be polite, soft, and kind 24/7? And I don't think that it was a gendered thing, obviously, because most of the people that were making the allegations, I think all of the people making allegations against her were female. Also, the whole fat shaming thing, like, I just don't see that. I could totally see, like, hey, you're not moving as well now as you did at the end of last tour, right? We've taken a 3 or 4 or 5 month break. Looks like you put on some pounds and you haven't been fucking walking and you haven't been moving. And like, your job is to be athletic. And I don't think that's fat shaming.
No, and it doesn't even need to be a long-term, exposure or anything like that. It could just be like, hey, I worked through an agency to get dancers and you're not giving me what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you go.
That could have just been workplace counseling. The problem is when you go with your fucking employees to the titty bar and encourage them to eat bananas from vaginas.
Vagnanas.
All right, man. This has been fun. This has been with Thunder's Applause. Shooting the Poodoo. We talked about COVID. We talked about digital rights management shit. Yeah. There we go. Good. We can hear it now, so we can control the volume. So we don't find out about it later when we're done recording. It's been a good show. We talked about what did you call them? Bananas and vaginas?
Vagnanas.
We talked about vagnanas. We talked about digital rights management and the digital dystopia of our future. We talked a little bit about COVID. I'm sick as a dog. Not all dogs are sick. Few dogs are sick. Sick
as a COVID patient.
Sick as a COVID patient. Not as sick as fucking Dianne Feinstein though. And it's just back in the hospital, and she's almost dead. And I watched a committee hearing with Bernie Sanders the other day, and two people, one of the committee members and one of the people they were grilling or whatever, were yelling at each other, and it was totally unprofessional. And you find out Bernie's the chair. And he just looks like this incompetent old man sitting up there. He's got no juice left. It's sad. Our fucking Congress is really kind of...
I don't expect him to have any juice left, but I do expect him to retire.
Yeah. And it's just amazing because, like, our Congress is totally perfect for the end of American empire, right? Because it's just old and decrepit and delusional and, falling over all the time. Mitch McConnell had a fucking stroke in the middle of a sentence.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah,
someone did that.
It's fucking crazy, man. And and meanwhile, we're just seeking out to cancel celebrities who try to do good just because they're not as perfect as we want them to be, and maybe we're projecting. Like, we want our cool celebrities that are supposed to be cool to be really awesome because, like, the rest of the fucking real world is so goddamn disappointing.
Yeah. Why can't we just have one person who's perfect?
We also talked about the UPS.
Pedro Pascal.
He's not even perfect.
Shh. Quiet. He's the best we got.
He's too busy fucking off filming other shows. He won't even just be the Mandalorian, man.
He's too old to be doing half the shit the Mandalorian's doing. Like, jumping out of that starship, he's like, my knees.
That's true. But that's why they have special effects and the movie magic, right? We also talked about the UPS strike, which is really good. And it's not that $170,000 that's posted all over fucking headline. I really think is meant to make you mad and make you jealous. Yeah. Not to get you in the street organizing, to get you pointing the finger at someone getting more than you so that you're mad at the fellow worker instead of the fucking bosses. And then they're scare tacticking you by saying you're going to have to pay $10 more for fucking Amazon Prime. And you're going to have to pay $6 more to send that package that you send like once a year.
Yeah. And remember, Ask not, why is that person flipping my burger making $25 an hour? Ask instead, why am I only making 20? I feel like I should make more. And then fight. It'll be great.
It's fucking absurd, but we're really close, and we should have a long conversation about that because I'm about halfway through a really interesting book about elite competition as a factor for state collapse or state crisis, I should say, because oftentimes you settle it, but generally periods of chaos and violence like civil wars come exactly when we have conditions like we do now. They call it the author calls it an overproduction of the elite. There are too many rich people. There are too many wealthy people or rich people competing for power,
and not enough people to support them.
Limited number of spaces for power.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
That's why you have 30 fucking people in a Republican primary.
They have reached the electron degeneracy pressure of rich people. There's just too many rich people pushing. Something's got to give.
But guess what? When they say stand up and clap, they will, because when liberty dies, it dies.
With thunderous applause.
Have a good night, everybody. Peace out.
Baby.